Hello and welcome to Energy and Environment Weekly. I am Joycelyn Elakeche Ada. Our top stories are for today. Oil falls ahead of OPEC Plus supply policy meeting. OPEC members to hold crucial meeting on output increase today. The petroleum tanker drivers, a branch of the Nigerian Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, has vowed to embark on strike as from the 8th of October. And on the program, the leader of Just Green Center will be joining us virtually to discuss the recycling attitude in Nigeria and the environment. All this and more on today's episode of Energy and Environment Weekly. We'll be back after this short break.
Sir, can you please give us the permission to search you? You can go.
Is this a movie? If it happened...
Officer, I beg carry and go station. When our Oga come, you come meet am for there.
Hey, Mr. Man, I cannot do that.
Tell your Oga to come to our station when he returns.
Am I in a movie? If it happen,
Mama, please. Mama, please.
Thank God you're here. Do the needful.
Mama, please, just 3 weeks now.
Madam, why did you invite us to come help chase your tenant now?
This is a civil matter now.
Is this a movie? If it happen,
If we follow
The new police law.
Welcome to Energy and Environment Weekly. We begin with oil prices, which fell this morning ahead of a scheduled meeting by the Organization of Exporting Countries and its allies, together known as OPEC+. The meeting is to determine whether a recent rally in prices amid supply shocks and a recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic will be sustained. The organization is presently facing pressure from some countries to produce more to help lower prices as demand has recovered faster than expected in certain parts of the world. In July, OPEC Plus agreed to boost output by 400,000 barrels per day every month until at least April 2022 to phase out 5.8 million barrels per day of existing cuts. The oil price rally has also been fueled by an even bigger increase in gas prices that have spiked at 300% and are trading around $200 per barrel in comparable terms, prompting switching to fuel oil and other crude products to generate electricity and for other industrial needs. Brent crude was down 14 cents at $79.14 per barrel. It rose 1.5% last week, and that's its fourth week gain in a row, while U.S. oil dropped by 15 cents, and that's 0.2% to $75.73 a barrel after gaining for the past 6 weeks. Let's take a look at today's OPEC members' daily pricing chart. Before we continue on the power sector, let's quickly speak to our guest. It's a non-governmental organization known as Just Green Center, and it aims to pioneer innovations for large-scale system change in Nigeria through social entrepreneurship, eco-entrepreneurship, peer mentoring, advocacy, research, networking, and partnership. This leading youth movement has an ever-evolving commitment to help restore the economy and the environment. Watch this.
Repurposing 50,000 plastic bottles seems like a huge task, and of course it is, but it was done, and creatively so. There is no doubt the level of damage plastic has done to the ecosystem, but the Anglo-Just youths maximize the plastic in their community by creating something beautiful out of it. This is a story of practical restoration.
Joining us virtually is Mr. Oscar Danladi. He is the leader of the Just Green Center. Mr. Danladi, you're welcome to Energy and Environment Weekly.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you're watching.
Okay, so Mr. Danladi, I was just watching that amateur video of your recent project, but before we go into that, tell us what Just Green Center is about.
Yes, like you rightly mentioned, Just Green Center is a youth-driven initiative. Majorly, we're looking at eco-innovations, eco-enterprise, and social impact, and we're looking at exploring youth capacity to be able to achieve this. So it's a driven center that is established largely by young people. We're residing here in Jos with the sole aim to reach out to as many young people within our society, looking at triple bottom kind of impact. We're looking at social impact, we're looking at economic impact, and environmental impact.
I was watching that video. It seems you people are into recycling of some sort. I saw, used plastic bottles being used to, construct a building. What is that about?
Okay, so that's one of our recent projects. We call it the Youth Livelihood Center. Now, this project came largely because we wanted to respond to the impact of COVID-19 on the livelihood of young people. But then because our emphasis is to see how we marry economic sustainability with environmental sustainability, particularly because we partner with Tearfund, and Tearfund is a UK-based organization with the sole aim of working around what they call EES, and it aligns with our vision, which is the environmental economic sustainability. Now, we thought about how to go about making this impact, and we understand that young people were worse hit, considering the fact that Nigeria is largely a country with huge youth population. They were worse hit as a result of COVID-19. And we felt the best approach is to work within their communities. And the interesting thing about this particular building, it was a building that was born as a result of the 2001 crisis. So we approached the community and said, we want to set up a space where we can train young people, but we don't really have the resources to build a new one. So we said, if they can provide that space for us, we can work together with the young people to remodel it. And amazingly, that building you see there on that video was a result of about 50,000 plastics that we mopped up from the waterways, from communities, and even from households, people that donated their plastics. So we sort of mopped those plastics and we used them innovatively to set up the space. In fact, as we speak right now, the trainings have begun because the place was just launched. That was an amateur video of the launch that we carried out about a week ago.
What are you training the youths on?
So we're majorly training them around solid waste management, We're looking at other alternatives like solar installation. We recently did a project on recycling electronic waste into components of solar energy. So we're looking at majorly building the capacities of young people within the context of what we call the eco-innovation. So it's not just about innovations, but about innovations that have environmental impact and have the potential of also impacting these young people economically. So that's the whole idea of the center. The Livelihood Center that we've just set up is a space where young people will be engaged, educated, and empowered to be able to think innovatively, to deal with waste problems within their communities and see potentials in things like plastics, see potential in basically things that people consider as waste and are impacting their communities in their dump site and all of that. So we're majorly focusing on training them to see opportunities in what could be considered as problems.
Nigerians, it's a general knowledge that Nigerians, we don't manage waste properly, and we dispose indiscriminately. Are we going to see a situation whereby these youths will be trained on, they are the future generation, future leaders, sorry. Would they be trained on how to manage waste properly, how discriminate disposal of waste?
Yes. In fact, it's a major objective of the project. We want to see how they can meaningfully deal with all the compositions of waste. But then the exciting thing about our approach is we are focusing on community-based approach, working with these young people to start with their communities. Though it's a pilot project, but we're seeing very amazing results already. They are now seeing what others consider as waste. They are seeing them as raw material. So God's willing, the major objective of the project is to see how dump sites will be reduced, how people will begin to understand the value. We want to inculcate within these young people the value and the culture of what we call the restorative economy, a secular economy where things don't just move from you buy, use, and dump. However, we want to empower them to understand this secular economy of how we can sort of reuse, repurpose, recycle things that ordinarily we will throw away. So we're beginning with these young people, but hopefully we will see amazing results coming out from there, and we can, again, replicate that in many other communities.
Let's talk about partnership. You spoke about having a partnership with, I didn't get that name properly, but are you seeking to, broaden your partnership? And I mean, what organizations are you looking at, hoping to partner with?
Now, the project has a very strong policy aspect. So we're not just interested in partnering with NGOs, but then those are the people that have supported the project so far. Tier Fund has been of great support to the center. Like I said, it's a youth-driven initiative. We're just interested in problem solving and all of that. But we're also looking at opportunities with government, because we believe that with policies in place, as simple as, policies to encourage people to sort their waste from source and to set up a very viable value chain for what we consider as waste, like plastics. If there are good value chains for those things, and it's supported by policy, it will go a long way. So we're working with the Jos Metropolitan Board, which is the JMDB here in Jos. We're also engaging the Plateau State government. We're also engaging a couple of other NGOs like Crudan. Crudan has been very supportive. We're also engaging Crudan. We're partnering with Rukon. All of these, they are NGOs within Jos that are very interested in sustainable development and in community development. So we're partnering with all of that, and we're very open to other individuals who have great concern, particularly concerning our environment, and are interested in seeing that our environment thrives, our environment is sustainable, our environment is flourishing. Why? Because again, everything we do, and combining with the whole conversation about climate change and even the COP26, that Nigeria has made some very deliberate commitment about reducing the carbon footprint. And excitingly, we know that waste is it's exciting. Why? Because waste is one of the major contributors, and that is what we are interested in reducing and dealing with, because if we deal with our waste, we will reduce our carbon footprint. So all of these conversations, for us, the excitement is that we're contributing to the commitment of our government to reduce carbon footprint. So we're partnering with government, we're partnering with other NGOs. We're also looking out for partnership with bigger companies like Coca-Cola and all of that, to see how we can implement the extended responsibility policy, so that they are not just producers' responsibility policy, to see how they are responsible for what they produce, and to see how they can sort of be very open for partnership like this, and how we can innovatively deal with the problem rather than just lament about it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Danladi. That's a big eye-opener, and we are hoping that you don't stick it alone to Jos. You bring it, to other parts of the country as well, because we all know that solid waste is one of the major issues we're having in Nigeria, disposal of this solid waste. We're having dump sites everywhere around cities that are eyesores, and these are part of the things that leads to cholera and other forms of diseases. So keep up the good work, keep training the youths, and we hope to speak to you soon. Thank you for being on Energy and Environment Weekly.
Thank you so much. Jocelyn, right?
Yes, Jocelyn. All right, bye for now. Well, let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll be taking stories from the oil and gas sector. Don't go anywhere. Thank God, that was sweet. Welcome back. And now OPEC and its allies will be meeting today to debate on how much oil to release into the market. Recent supply disruptions in the UK and a recovering demand from the coronavirus pandemic have pushed oil prices above $80 a barrel. The 3-year high prices is even more encouraged by an even bigger increase in gas prices, which have spiked 300% and have come to trade close to an equivalent of $200 per barrel due to supply shortages and low production of other fuels. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, the import bill for the petroleum products have continued to rise above its crude oil export for the last 5 years. In OPEC's 2021 annual report, it states that last year alone, Nigeria exceeded its petroleum product bill by over $43.4 billion when compared to its export of crude oil. The implication is that Nigeria is spending over $43 billion more than its revenue from oil annually. The OPEC report stated that Nigeria exported petroleum products worth $27.7 billion, while it imported petroleum products worth over $71.2 billion during the same period. Nigeria, a major producer of crude oil and gas, has been unable to refine petroleum products for several years. Hence, the country largely depends on imported petroleum products. OPEC stated that Nigeria exported petroleum products worth $27.29 billion, $37.98 billion, $54.51 billion, and $45.11 billion in 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019, respectively. Now, on the other hand, the country's petroleum imports in 2016, 2017, 2018, and 19 were $46.55 billion, $49.51 billion, $73.85 billion, and $93.97 billion, respectively. The country, therefore, had been spending more billions of dollars to import petroleum products than the amount of foreign exchange being earned from crude oil sales. Let's watch some updates disclosed by the Secretary General of the Organization of Exporting Countries, OPEC, Dr. Mohammed Sanusi Bakindo, at the organization's 55th Joint Technical Committee meeting.
The global economy remains on course to grow by a robust 5.6% this year and by a healthy 4.2% in 2022. China and India should continue to see strong economic activity, although localized COVID-19 restrictions, supply bottlenecks, and weaknesses in some key indicators slow this momentum. In Europe, some of the big economies are exceeding expectations, with our figures showing the Eurozone's economy rising by 4.7% in 2021 and 3.8% next year. The US, Mr. Chairman, is wrestling with regionalized surges in Delta variant cases and the scale of the government spending proposals, but the economic expansion continues apace, with the GDP projected to rise by 6.1% this year and 4.1% in 2022. This year, we continue to see demand rising by 6 million barrels a day to average 96.7 million barrels a day. In 2022, oil demand is expected to grow by around 4.2 million barrels a day and return to pre-pandemic levels of around 108 million barrels a day. Mr. Chairman, against this backdrop, the prevailing market uncertainties associated with the pandemic have been compounded by other unforeseen events. Our non-OPEC liquid supply growth outlook for 2021 has been revised down by around 170,000 barrels a day for the year, mainly due to the major disruptions caused earlier this month by Hurricane Ida and to a lesser extent, Hurricane Nicholas. Outages resulting from a fire on one of Mexico's offshore platforms were also a factor behind these revisions. For the coming year, we see the non-OPEC supply growth rising by 2.9 million barrels a day to an average 66.8 million barrels a day, similar to the last report of this committee. For 2022, the US liquid supply is expected to grow by 810,000 barrels a day to around 18.5 million barrels a day. From where we stand today, Mr. Chairman, the OPEC and non-OPEC ministerial decisions to begin returning 400,000 barrels a day to the market each month continue to help balance the need for incremental increases to address demand, while guarding against the potential for supply overhangs. Importantly, the successful implementation of these decisions has helped eliminate the market stock overhang. Our latest data shows that total OECD commercial oil stocks fell further by 20 million barrels a day month on month in August. At 2.86 billion barrels, inventories were 364 million barrels lower than the same month a year ago, and 131 million barrels lower than the 2015-2019 average. The current tightness in the gas market is having ripple effects across the sectors that depend on this all-important fuel, with potentially negative implications for the world's economic growth potential. Already there are signs that tightness in the gas market would further drive demand for substitute fuels, including oil products for heating and power generation. These developments reinforce the need to keep a close watch on supply and demand fundamentals in the coming months, taking into consideration the weather and seasonal factors. The situation in the gas market appears to be exacerbated by logistical problems, supply disruptions, and investment challenges stemming from last year's demand slump. Regarding investment, what we are seeing now could become more pronounced in the future, given the current policy efforts and investor activism aimed at crowding out investment in essential fuels like oil and gas. In view of the observed downturn trend in commercial oil stocks over the past 5 months and recent tightness in the gas market with heightened market volatility, we therefore have to carefully look at the supply requirements in the coming quarter and entering into the first quarter of 2022. These factors warrant in our deliberations today a careful assessment of the market conditions to alleviate any further upside potential in volatility and supply side pressure. At the same time, we should bear in mind the uncertainties and associated downside risks, particularly in the second half of 2022. Moving beyond the gas market, let me mention a number of other uncertainties that merit our close attention as well. Clogged supply chains, inflationary pressures, and unease about mounting piles of debt represent risks to the recovery.
That was the Secretary General of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, the 55th technical meeting, which was held on the 29th of September. And now moving on, the Petroleum Tanker Drivers branch of the Nigerian Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, has vowed to embark on a strike from the 8th of October if the federal government fails to meet their 3 demands. The national chairman of the union, Otumba Salman Oladiti, called on the federal government to reconstruct all the bad portions of the roads, enhance the enforcement of 45,000 loading capacity, and ensure that trucks have safety valve devices. The implication of the strike action is that the transportation of petroleum products would be adversely affected. He said by the end of the week, if nothing is done about their demands, they will embark on the strike on the 8th of October. He said the organization gave the government an ultimatum of 21 days, 14 days, and 7 days on 3 different occasions, but due to intervention, they had suspended the strike. He said this time around, there won't be any notice given as they will act upon their threats now. Otumba Oladiti clarified that they ain't asking the federal government to construct all the Nigerian roads at the same time, but to do a comprehensive palliative intervention on all the bad portions that makes their members spend 2 to 3 days in a certain place. He mentioned areas such as Calabar, Odupani, Warri to Benin, Okene to Lokoja as having the worst of the roads. And speaking on their second demand on their agreed 45,000 capacity, he said government should disallow the loading of over 45,000 via the tank farm owners. He called on the government to sanction any tank farm owner that loads above 45,000 capacity. He said it is not in an effort to cause fuel scarcity. We'll take another short break. When we return, we will be looking at the power sector. Stay with us.
Following the sudden outbreak of cholera in some parts of the Federal Capital Territory, significant number of cases have been tested positive for cholera. The Health and Human Services Secretariat has intensified surveillance in the affected communities around the area council. Therefore, residents are requested to report any case of diarrhea to the nearest health facility or the Department of Public Health on the following numbers: Dr. Sadiq Abdurrahman, 0803-705-1784, or Dr. Doris John, 0803-315-6560. Ensure that the water used for domestic purpose is clean, boiled and filtered. Start ORS immediately you have diarrhea. Ensure that all food is properly cleaned and well cooked before consumption. Ensure that fecal waste are hygienically disposed of. Do not defecate in the open or into streams. Houses with surface wells should make sure they are covered all the time. Public Health Department, FCT Health and Human Services Secretariat. Announcer.
You are watching Energy and Environment Weekly, and now we are talking power. The Senate says it has cleared the $5.79 billion Mambila hydropower project of all financial and legal hurdles, and that construction would begin by the end of the year. Senator Teslim Folari, Chairman, Senate Committee on Local Content, revealed this while receiving the report of the Finance Subcommittee of the Mambila Hydroelectric Power Project on Monday. According to him, the contractors in charge of the project were now expected to mobilize men and materials to site. He assured that all issues has been resolved. He revealed that some progress has been made as the federal government was mandated to pay the contractors, Sunrise, the sum of $200 million, and if not paid within a stipulated time, it would accrue interest. He revealed that the contractors said the money is now $400 million because of the accumulated interest. The project was officially awarded by the Federal Executive Council on August 30th, 2017, and it has been signed as a contract between the Nigerian government, the Ministry of Power, and a Chinese joint venture of CGGC. The senator further revealed that the Nigerian Export and Import Bank was mandated to play the lead role in the subcommittee, while the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority was to serve as the secretariat of the panel. He said all the issues will be addressed in the report and will thereafter be forwarded to the National Assembly for further legislative action. Consequently, the National Assembly, along with the Technical Working Group, constituted the Finance Subcommittee under the chairmanship of the Executive Director, Nexim Bank. The subcommittee was inaugurated earlier this year by the Senate Committee on Local Content, and it was mandated to report back to the committee within 6 weeks. The senator stated that the subcommittee was an offshoot of the Technical Working Group on Mambila Hydroelectric Power Local Content, inaugurated in June 2020. Senator Folari noted that the challenges that emanated in the course of the execution of the project made the Presidential Committee on Northeast Development, now Northeast Development Commission, to review the initial plan of the Technical Working Group. The senator said the subcommittee was mandated to work out modalities that would facilitate the financial requirement of the local content aspect of the project, which was estimated at 1.7 billion naira, representing a 30% of the approved contract of $5.7 billion. Still on the power sector, the Minister of Power, Engineer Abubakar Aliyu, has urged stakeholders in the power sector to synergize, collaborate, and interact with one another so as to give Nigerians the steady power supply they deserve. The minister was speaking in his office in 2 separate interactive sessions with the distribution companies, DISCOs, and the generation companies, GENCOs. Engineer Leo said even though he is sent to the ministry to give policy direction and execute government mandate reforms in the power sector, he would need collaboration from every stakeholder on the power sector to execute the mandate. He said The work in the power sector is a chain and that the whole value chain should not be broken, as coming together, interacting, interdependent with one another will translate to great results. The minister extended his hand of fellowship to the stakeholders in the power sector, urging them to try and give back to the society. He said his office is open for any useful advice that can move the power sector forward. The stakeholders, as represented, pledged their loyalty and readiness to work with the minister to achieve the desired reforms in the power sector. And finally, on the power sector, the governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Umara Zulum, has described the groundbreaking ceremony of the Maiduguri and Environs Emergency Power Project, MEP, as a huge relief to the people of Maiduguri who have been without power supply for 9 months. According to the governor, NNPC's commercial investment in the 50 megawatts combined gas power plant will ultimately increase energy supply level to Maiduguri and its environs, thereby impacting the state's economy positively when completed. He said the Borno State government will do everything possible to ensure that maximum security of lives and properties are guaranteed for the project's implementation team and residents of the state. Speaking, the Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, Marla Mele Carey, explained that the project is as a result of a presidential directive to provide emergency intervention to the electricity supply disruptions facing Maiduguri and its environs as a result of incessant activities of insurgents. Marlon Carey said the project would further improve NNPC's gas utilization efforts for the socio-economic benefit of Nigerians. The GMD assured the governor that the project will be delivered on schedule and that the contract has already been awarded to General Electric Global, GE, for the supply of gas turbine, while engineering, procurement and construction has been contracted to China Machinery and Engineering Corporation, noting that the project would be a model for other cities across the country. It will be recalled that Maiduguri has been without power supply since January 2021 as a result of activities of insurgents who have blown up transmission lines on at least 2 occasions. In August 2021, the NNPC signed an official contract with the CMEC and GE on the project. The groundbreaking ceremony signifies the official commencement of the project as the contractors have since moved to site. And that's as much as we can take on today's episode of Energy and Environment Weekly. Our environmental tip for today is cholera is a deadly disease. It is contracted via dirty environment and by drinking feces-contaminated water. Open defecation is one of the major causes of cholera. This health hazard can be avoided if we stop practicing open defecation and keep our environment clean. Thanks for watching. I am Joycelyn Elakeche Ada. Bye for now.